Word.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam. Hey, Sa, is this on? Is this on? It say go, but it say go live. Salam wa rahmatullah. How you doing, man?
Alhamdulillah, the good
I'm
shit.
good, man. How you making out, man?
Alhamdulillah, man.
MashaAllah.
I'm on YouTube for my shit.
No, that what you talking about, man? Oh. What's that? This? Okay. Nah, I don't know. They might got a part of it, but I don't think this part. We're going over the Book of Marriage. So I don't know if that part is translated. It might be, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wa mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه محاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. In continuation of our book or class Kitab al-Nikah from a book Zad al-Mustaqni' from Imam al-Hajjawi rahimahullah ta'ala. We stopped the last class dealing with the blemishes or the shortcomings or defects in a marriage, specifically speaking about the man. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to cover the man again. Just want to quickly cover the defects of men in marriage, and likewise the women. And we're going to speak about a musharaka bainahuma, the thing that both the man and the woman both share that are considered defects in a marriage, and which can be reasons for people to get an annulment in the marriage, So the first part, now I'm going to read through it quickly, and then we'll read through the text, whoever has the text with them. There's some things in the text that we're going to skip, but there's some things that we will cover. If anyone has the text Zad al-Mustaqni', and if you were to read it, especially this part, Faslun fil uyub fil nikah, if you look at that part, if you have the Arabic and you're looking through the part, it's confusing. So what we did was we broke it down into sections. If you're just reading the book and you have the Arabic in the book and you're reading it, you're going to be confused, perhaps what goes with the men, which goes with the women, and which one that they share. So what we did was we broke them down into categories. So as it relates to the men, there are 3 defects, common defects that you find in men that are reasons for a woman to seek an annulment of the marriage. The first one is jubba. Jubba, it means that his private part has been detached or cut off. Inna is that he is impotent, or he does not have the ability to perform sexually in a marriage. He does not have the ability. And the last one is qita'a khasa. It means that his testes are also detached. Those are the 3 for the men. The next thing we want to cover is for the women. And we're going to cover this briefly before we touch on the text. The woman, aritqu wa qarnu wal aflu. All 3 of these things in Arabic, they're different words, but all 3 of those things mean insidad the farj, which means that there's something in her private area that's preventing penetration when she's married. Does that make sense? There may be something that prevents a man from being intimate with his wife because she has some type of thing, a blockage in that particular area. These are things that can nullify a marriage. Right. The second thing, al-fatqu, is a term that is used here. It means inkhiraq ma bayna sabilain. And this also means that a woman, she may have an opening between her private parts and her rectum, and fluids get mixed up. And this is also a form of a sickness. And this is also a reason for there to be a marriage that is nullified, if you will. So for the women, we essentially, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5, but we broke them out into 3 parts. There is a blockage which would prevent penetration, and there is a fatqu, which is there's no blockage at all, whether it's wide open between the private area to the rectum. Okay, and there's fluids are mixing, and this is also a means for a khulu. Oh, I'm sorry, scratch khula. There's a means for an annulment or a fasq. Means for an annulment or a fasq nikah. Right. Another one, or the third one, is quruh as-siyala. Quruh as-siyala is similar to the one before that, but there's no blockage. Some of them say it's mustahaba, meaning a woman, she bleeds constantly. That may also be a reason for a man to want to nullify the marriage. Right. Now, remember that part about nullifying a marriage. We'll speak about that in more detail as we continue. The next part, al-mushtaraka baynahuma. These are things that both man and woman can both share, and there will also be reasons for them to get an annulment in the marriage. The first one is istitlaq al-bawl, is that the man or the woman cannot control urination. The man or the woman, they cannot control their urination. They're unable to stop themselves from urinating. Okay. The next one is al-basur wa nasur. And this is a type, they call it some type of rectal illness or rectal disease. And in some cases, it may even be translated to be a form of hemorrhoids, a form of hemorrhoids. They consider it, and those who speak Arabic, it's called the da'un fi maq'ada. As they say, it's a disease in the rectum area. The third thing that they both share is they can be considered khunthi. Khunthi is a hermaphrodite. So let's say, for example, a man marries someone believing that there's a woman, but they're a hermaphrodite, meaning you don't know whether they have both tools of a man and a woman. These are also reasons why a person may get an annulment. The fourth one is junoon, meaning they somehow lost their mind. And they say even for lahba, even if for 1 second, a sister marries a brother and he flips out and he loses his mind, that's the reason for her to say, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this situation, or vice versa, The next one is al-baras, or jutham. And this is, if you translate it, it's a form of leprosy, a skin disease, right? These are also things that both man and woman can share, and it could be a reason that would cause a person to want to nullify or get an annulment in that particular marriage. Another part is something called bakhru fem. Like, if, for example, if a person has a type of smell coming from their mouth that is consistent, and it's not good, and that may also be a reason for spouses to get an annulment, be it man or woman. Right. So right now we're going to read through the text just translate as I read through it, and then we'll move on to the second part, inshallah ta'ala. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ زَوْجَهَا مَجْبُوبًا. So whoever finds their husband, if a woman finds her husband مَجْبُوبًا أو بقي ماله لا يطأ به فلها فسخ. If a woman finds her husband and his privates have been cut off, he doesn't have any, or it's been cut off to the point where they cannot perform, then she has a right to get a fasq. وَإِنْ ثَبَتَتْ أُنُّهُ بِإِقْرَارِهِ. And if it's been confirmed that he is impotent, he's unable to perform intimacy with his confession or with some type of clarification, then they would delay it for an entire year so that they can come up with a ruling on his situation. فَإِنْ وَطِيَ فِيهَا. If he is able to perform within that year, then she does not have the right for an annulment. And if he does not perform within that year, then she has a right for an annulment. When it tarafat annahu wati'aha falaysa bi'anin. If she confesses that they were intimate, then he no longer has that description. Like, if she's okay with it and wants to renege on that later, for example, if she knows he's unable to be intimate with her, and then she waits for a while, and then she changes her mind and say, you know what, I want to go back on that. I want an annulment from this marriage. She is no longer Islamically able to use that option to get out of the marriage. That doesn't mean she can't get out, but she can't use the annulment aspect. So a person may ask, well, what's the difference between the annulment and the... We'll talk about that later. Right. The next part. It says, فَصْلٌ فِي الْعُيُوبَ الَّتِي تَخْتَصُّ بِالْمَرْأَةِ. Now we're going to talk about some of the defects that are specific to the woman. الرَّتْقُ وَالْقَرْنُ وَالْعَفْلُ. Those things that we mentioned, those three, is that there's a blockage that prevents penetration. So if a man gets married to a woman and he is unable to have any form of penetration due to some type of meat, bone, whatever the case may be that is blocking, then this is grounds for him to seek an annulment in the marriage. وَاسْتِطْلَاقُ بَوْلٍ. And this is where they want to both instead of one. So we'll read that. If a person has continual urination, وَنَحْوِ وَقُرُوحٌ سِيَالَةٌ. This means that a woman may have mustahada, means she bleeds a lot of times. She bleeds a lot. Basur wa nasur is a form of skin disease like leprosy. Wa khisa'u wa sallu wa wija'un. Khisa'u is like the testes being cut off, and the man is unable likewise to perform. Another one is a person as a hermaphrodite, or they use their intellect, they use their mind for a time being, etc. Malish. When I said basur wa nasur, that was a rectal disease, so it's like hemorrhoids. And the other one, al-baras wa jutham, that's leprosy. So if anyone's listening, I didn't want to go against what I said earlier. And it says, يَثْبُتُ لِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا فَسْقٌ. So if a man finds that in his wife, or she finds those things in her husband, then they both have a right for a fasq. Who grants a fasq? Who grants an annulment? Do the husband grant his wife an annulment? Does the wife automatically get an annulment? How does that work? Who grants the annulment of the marriage? This is under an Islamic judge or an Islamic markaz Islamic or an Islamic center where you would go to get that done. طيب. And it says, if this happened after the contract, meaning after their marriage, let's say these things took place after their marriage, or وَمَنْ رَضِيَ بِالْعِيبِ أو وجدت منه دلالته مع علمه فلا خيار له. If a person finds out that this happened after the marriage, right? Or they're okay with it, meaning the husband or the spouse, they're okay with that. Or if you find that he knew about it or something like that, فَلَا خِيَارَ لَهُ. If the man knew about this stuff and he still married her, then he doesn't have an option because you already knew about this particular issue. And a fusk is not performed unless, or a fusk is performed by a judge. A fusk is performed by a judge. And in our case here, it would be like an Islamic center, place that you trust, that they're going to do what's right Islamically. Like, so here's the thing. If this happens before, let's say, for example, the husband or the wife, they do the aqd nikah. So they get married today at the center, they leave, and then they find out all of these issues. It says, فَإِنْ كَانَ قَبْلَ الدُّخُولِ, and these are the way, if you were going in front of an Islamic judge, these are the issues they're going to talk about. فَإِنْ كَانَ قَبْلَ الدُّخُولِ فَلَا مَهْرٍ. If the husband gets home or the wife is there and they say, hey, they do the aqd of nikah, and they go home and they see that they have these issues, they're like, hold up, and they're not intimate with each other, then they have a right for a fasq. In that case, there's no mahar. There's no mahar to be paid. The brother says, nope, let me give my money back. I'm going back to the wali. I'm cool. Does that make sense? Right. It says, وَبَعْدَهُ لَهَا الْمُسَمَّى وَيَرْجَعُ عَلَى الْغَارٍ إِنْ وُجِدْ. Now this is very, very important here. Let's say, for example, the man marries the woman. She has this issue, but it's not known until after they have intercourse, until after they're intimate. She had whatever issue that he didn't know about. In this case, he wants a fasq. Does he get the mahar back? Yes or no? This is a question. What do you think? Does he get the dowry back? The man didn't know. Pay attention. The man had no idea his wife had these issues. He marries this woman. He goes home. He's intimate with her. He finds out later, like, oh man, all of these issues are going on with her that he didn't know. Does he have a right to get his money back? The sister knew. Or maybe she didn't know. Or maybe she didn't know it was a reason that would nullify the marriage, right? In this case, they're already intimate. Who gets the money? Does he get his money back? Yes or no? So does he get his money back? So you say he just, that's it. He just gets out the marriage and doesn't. He might have spent like 10, 15,000. What do you think? You think he should get his money back? What do you think? Think about it. If a man, listen, if a man's getting married, right? He's putting up all types of money, setting up stuff and all that, and then, yes.
That's something that you're supposed to talk about.
But they didn't know. She didn't tell him. He didn't tell her. This happens. Yes.
Because just like you said, she might not know. I never knew the rules until
That's what I'm saying. So she didn't know. So now who does the money? Who gets the money? Or he just take a L? You want your money back. You're gonna take the L. How much money would you have spent when you say you don't want to take a L? It don't matter.
if it's a large amount,
If it's a large amount, you can't take that L. Right.
I think it should depend on if she knew or not. If she knew, like, I don't know, whatever the issue is, she knew she had it, and she deceived the brother, then yeah, you should get his money back. But it was like, man, I ain't even know whatever.
So even if, okay, what do you think? He said, give a small, but she already got the money though. You paid $20,000. How you gonna take it back? She already got it. And you was intimate with her. Pay attention, brothers. Anytime you're intimate with a woman, you got to put some money down on it. Did that make, I hate to say it like that. I know it sounds crazy. No, listen. I'm not trying to make it sound crazy. You got to understand something. A man pays money muqabil istimta', What does that mean? A man pays dowry in order for him to be intimate with a woman. So even though he paid the money, he's intimate with the woman, somebody got to pay for it. So what did the Sharia say? The Sharia says, وَبَعْدَهُ لَهَا الْمُسَمَّى. If he was intimate with her, and khalas, she keeps the money. But what's the next phase? What happens? Because is he just burnt? No. It says, وَيَرْجِعُ بِهِ عَلَى الْغَارٍ إِنْ وُجِدْ. He goes back to the one who deceived him. That would be the wali. The wali will owe the man the money. And this is why it's very, very, very important, awliya, brothers that represent women. It's very important that you know what you're doing. That you know what you're doing. I get a call 5:30 this morning. A sister says, "Oh, call." I'm like, "What the?" 5:30 this morning. Having some issues. Okay. She was supposed to be getting married here, right? She uses her 18-year-old son to marry her off. What's the problem with an 18-year-old son? We talked about that. What's the problem? An 18-year-old son does not know the rulings of marriage. He does. Just sisters, if you think I'm wrong, how many of your 18-year-old sons have a job and paying your bills? How many? How many 18-year-old boys know what it takes to be a husband? How many 18-year-old boys know what to look for in a husband for their mother? A sister, well, I told him. No, you can't tell him because you're not a man. You're not a man, sister. You don't know how men think. An 18-year-old, he still got to learn himself. He's still trying to get knowledge. So what happens is, and just think about it. You a man. You a grown man. Maybe you 45, 50 years old. You marry a sister. You know her 18-year-old son representing her. And his mom, she's sweet. This is the way, sisters, this is the way men think. Oh, he's sweet. This is easy. Let me go get him some gummy bears or something. Buy him a PlayStation game for it. You know what I mean? Sisters don't get it. Men run game. And if you're not paying attention, you're gonna get ran over. That's how it go. This is why you need a wali that understands the role of being a wali. You can't just go out here and think, oh man, my son 18. And then they start betting. Well, I'm grown. I could do, all right, what you call me for then? You grown, why you on my line? You know what I'm saying? This is the yes.
It's like I've been Muslim for like over 20 years. I never know this information. You know what I mean? So like 18-year-old, we would know. I think the average round we would know this.
Well, this is why we had classes, Sheikh. An 18-year-old. Now, I'm not saying, now here's one of the conditions of the wali is that if let's say it's your 18-year-old son. All right. So one of the conditions is called a rushd fil aqd. They have knowledge as it comes to certain contracts. Let's say you got an 18-year-old, he's a businessman. He knows how to make moves and money. So he's in that lane, he's good. In other lanes, he's good. When it comes to looking for a wife for your mother, how can you be good in that lane? How? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's not likely. I'm saying, this is what I'm saying. If your mother there's an 18-year-old kid in here. If your mother says she want to get married, you going to tell her no? How many 18-year-old boys going to tell their mother no? You said they will?
Get married?
An 18-year-old, if an 18-year-old boy's mother wants to get married and use him as a wali, she going to tell him everything good about the brother.
Oh.
You think he going to say, no, mom, we're not doing that? He going to say that? No. You say you are? I don't know one. I don't know not one. And I'm not. Listen, Sheikh. You can be as overprotected as you want. Your mom bust you upside your head and tell you, listen, I'm getting married. You better do. I mean, you better do what I tell you to do. What you gonna do? You gonna go against your mother? That's my point. There are not a lot of boys that's gonna go against their mom. That's their mother. It's not their aunt. It's not their sister. It's their mom. Mom say do this, they rolling out. That's how it go. Am I right? How old are you? 18? Am I right? So what I'm saying is this. What I'm saying is this. When it comes to this issue here, it says, وَيَرْجِعُ عَلَى غَارٍ. So if a man is deceived, stuff is messed up out here, man. It's messed up. If a sister is deceived or a brother is deceived about the marriage, right? You're an 18-year-old boy. What tape you gonna run on your mom? Oh, my mom's not, you gotta be careful because she's not good in this lane right here. But what 18-year-old qualified to do that? Really? Some may. I'm not saying all of them not. Some may, but women, you're setting yourself up for failure. In this case, if the man is deceived, then it says he goes back to the one who deceived him. Well, who's the one that would have deceived them? They mentioned three people. It could be the wali, it could be the woman herself, or it could be the wakil. The wakil is who? What's the representing who? Representing the wali. Excellent. The wakil is the one that represents the wali. So in this case, the man has a choice. He put down $15,000 and found out, let's say he found out she was a hermaphrodite. Right? He doesn't want to be married to a hermaphrodite. That's his right. So now, but he already consummated. Now he's like, Dad, what I'm gonna do? He can go back to the woman. She could say, I didn't, whatever she said. Go back to the wali or go back to the wakil to get his money back. But if an older woman, فإن رضيت الكبيرة مجبوبا أو إنينا لم. All right. If a woman, and pay attention to this, and it's also important, walis, right? Let's say, for example, an older woman marries a man who has his privates cut off. They're no longer there. Or he's impotent. Or he has ED, erectile dysfunction, or anything along those lines, right? Can she stay married? It's her choice. She can stay married to him or she cannot. It says, لم تمنع بل من مجنون أو مجذوم أو أبرص. However, if she marries someone and he turns out to be majnun, meaning he loses his mind uncontrollably, right? Or he has a type of skin disease, and this a disease that she can get. In this case, her wali can come in and say, no, we ended this marriage. But what's the difference between the first and the second? The first one, the harm is only with him. It doesn't necessarily affect her. The second one, the harm is with the man and could potentially affect her. If he loses his mind, he could beat her up, kill her, whatever. If he has a skin disease, the skin disease can get on to her, etc., and cause her problems in her life. So in that regard, then that is removed. طيب. Any questions about that? Yes. I'm sorry?
I said, how would something like that even be proven if that's whatever reason?
Which part? Something like what?
Like erectile dysfunction or something.
How?
He got it. He said, man, ain't nothing wrong with me. Man, what? She just don't want to be married to him for whatever reason.
But she don't got to say that. She can just say, I don't like him. She could, listen, brothers, if your wife don't like the way you look, she has it. Listen, when we get to the chapter of khul'ah, you'll find a lot of brothers will be amazed to find out if your wife just doesn't like the way you look no more, she can get out the marriage. She has a right to seek a khul'ah. This information probably hasn't been taught, but it's the reality. Think about it. In Islam, if you're married to a woman and you don't like her anymore, you have a right to get out, right? Like, what if she don't like you no more? She's got to sit there. It is what it is. Huh? You better. Then we start coming up with hadith and telling her, what do we tell? What the men tell the women? If you ask for a divorce and there's no reason for it, then you won't smell the fragrance of Jannah. Sah? How many people familiar with this hadith? Nobody? You familiar with this hadith authentic? Does that mean because she don't like the way you look? That's a reason, ain't it? Maybe your breath stink. Is that a reason? Maybe. The reality of it, marriage goes both ways. It ain't just the man benefits and the woman don't. It's vice versa. She got to like the way you look. Y'all like the way she look. It got to be mutual. Can't just be one-sided, brothers. Make sense? Sheikh look confused. You never heard that before? All right. Right. So then, back to your question, how would you find out? I mean, it's conversation. She can come to the masjid. Let's say we was in a court, Mumtaz. Let's say we're in an Islamic court. She comes to the court that says, my husband has ED, or he's impotent. He hasn't been intimate with me an X amount. If you come to an Islamic court with a shakwa or a complaint like that, the court is going to send him to the doctors and find out. Now, we can't do that here, but in the Islamic court system, they'll do that. Okay, they'll take them to the doctor and find out. Which brings us to our next part here. The next thing we're going to cover, and we're only going to cover this briefly, and the reason why we're going to introduce this is because we need to understand the beauty of the Sharia. What does that mean? So, you know how people say Islam is barbaric, Islam wipes everyone out, doesn't allow people to practice the other religions, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense? You heard people talk like that, right? So this book here is a book on Islamic law, real law. Like this book, what you find in this book, you'll find in a courtroom. I've actually sat in courtrooms in Islamic country where they have books similar to this, not this one, but similar to this, and they go over verdicts and rulings in them, and they rule on people based on this. Is that clear? Like the next thing we're going to cover here is called the chapter of non-Muslims getting married. Question: why would that, if we're in a Muslim country, why is that even significant about non-Muslims getting married? Well, because non-Muslims live in Muslim countries, and they have Islamic judges in those countries, and Islam recognizes non-Muslim marriages. And if they decide to come to a Muslim judge to rule in their affairs, and there are rulings as it relates to that. And that's what we're going to talk about briefly before we close out. And the reason that we're covering this is to give everyone the idea that Islam is way more than what you think it is. It's way more detailed than what you could ever imagine Islam is. So I'll give you an example. The first thing that we're going to cover is, I need everyone to think for a minute. You're in a Muslim country, okay? You have people that live in this country that are Christian, that are Jewish, that are atheists, that et cetera, et cetera. They're all in the same area. Inside of this country, they have Islamic judges, and they also may have other judges, okay? So here it says, حكمه كنكاح المسلمين. If a Muslim, when a person comes to a Muslim judge and they're both non-Muslim, then the origin is that the Islamic court is going to look at it as if they are Muslim, meaning they're going to apply the rules of Islam for the most part. However, there are conditions. So when it comes to non-Muslims, and I only want to cover this briefly because there's a lot more to it, but just to give you a summary. If non-Muslims were to get married, they're married and they have marital problems, right? And they want to come to an Islamic judge. Then there are two ways the Islamic court will look at it. Number one, la yatahakam ilayna. Let's say, for example, they have an issue, but they normally wouldn't bring their affairs to us. Because right now we're being asked to rule in their marital affair. So normally they don't bring their affairs to us. وَإِذَا يَعْتَقِدُونَ صِحَّتَهَا فِي دِينِهِمْ. However, their marriage in their religion, they agree that their marriage is correct in their religion. If that's the case, then Islam also agrees with their marriage. Does that make sense? So, for example, If they're non-Muslims and they got married in the church and they're not, how does Islam view their marriage? Islam recognizes their marriage because they recognize it in their religion. Wait a minute, I thought Islam didn't care or respect our religions. Nah. In Islamic judicial law, it recognizes other marriages. Second thing, if they want the Muslims to rule in their affair, then it's based on two issues. Qabla aqd or ba'da aqd. If Islam were to rule on their marriage before they were intimate or after they were intimate. Why is that? Why does that matter? Because before they were intimate, they may have a marriage that Islam doesn't recognize because they came to us and they want us to rule in their marriage. Well, they may have a marriage that Islam doesn't recognize. Like what? You might have a nephew marrying his aunt. For example, in some cultures, you may have a man marry another man. Islam doesn't recognize that. So in that regard, that marriage is automatically null and void. Because if you're coming to us, then that marriage is null and void. If you go about your way, then that's your way. But if you come into us as the Muslims, then this marriage is null and void. We don't recognize it, right? Like, if it's after the contract, after they were intimate, etc., then we also have to look at it. Is this person even permissible for them to be married in our religion? For example, a son married to the mother, or aunts, uncles, whatever the case may be. If it's permissible for them to marry whoever they marry, then we'll look into their affair and we'll rule in it according to Islam. Does that make sense? Like, that's just zub the kalam, something that's real quick. The next thing we're going to talk about, and this is also important as it relates to our community here. So, how does Islam view? Now, mind you, we're speaking from the position of Islamic court, just so everyone understands what's going on here. How does Islam view two non-Muslims accepting Islam? And they were married before Islam, but once they accept Islam, does Islam recognize their marriage? Yes. So, we're going to read through this. قال المصنف رحمه الله إذا أسلم زوجان معا. So if a husband and wife, they both accept Islam at the same time. Oh, زوج كتابية فعلى نكاحهما. Let's say, for example, the husband and a wife accept Islam. No question, easy. Now we have a man accepts Islam, but his wife is a kitabiyya. Kitabiyya is a Christian or a Jewish woman. Does Islam still recognize their marriage? Yes or no? Yes. So so this is important because this happens in our society. A man and a woman may both accept Islam. Islam recognizes it. If the man accepts Islam and his wife doesn't, but she's a Christian or a Jewish woman, then Islam also recognizes that marriage and they remain married under Islam. Meaning, Islam recognizes that marriage and respects that marriage. Is that clear? Like, what if she was an atheist? Does Islam recognize that? No. So in this case, that marriage will be separated. They would be separated. That marriage is no longer valid in Islam. But the next part. فَإِنْ أَسْلَمَتْ هِيَ أو أحد زوجين غير كتابية قبل الدخول بطلة. Let's say, for example, if a woman accepts Islam, or the man, but let's say we're going to talk about the woman. Let's say a woman accepts Islam and her husband does it matter whether he's a Christian or a Jew? Her husband? No, it doesn't. Don't matter. Her husband can be a Christian, Jew, or atheist. A Muslim woman is not allowed to be married to a non-Muslim man. Is that clear? Sisters. I don't care how nice the brother is. I don't care what kind of job he has. I don't care how good of a Christian he is. It is not permissible for a Muslim woman to be married to a non-Muslim man. Islam looks at it as zina, fornication. And the sister will be in that state until she leaves that marriage or makes tawbah, leaves the marriage and make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not permissible. It is not permissible. Haram. Haram. Sisters, you have to understand this. If that's what you choose to do, that's between you and Allah, but understand the Islamic ruling on it. Understand the Islamic ruling on it. Like, yes. To what really happened? Muslim women marrying non-Muslim men? Of course. Yeah. It happens here in this city. It happens in other cities. Yes, it's common. It's common. The problem is, I don't think enough people speak out against it. It's something that is assumed. Everybody knows you can't do that, but no one talks about it. Right? Everyone knows you can't do it, but no one talks about it. So if it's not talked about, it becomes okay. Right? That's what happens. If we don't speak about it, this is how, the situation of the Muslims change, because we stop talking about things. When we stop talking about things, it becomes okay because no one speaks about it. There are details. There are a lot more details about that issue, but we're not going to get into it today. We're going to stop with that, inshallah ta'ala, for today. And then we will pick up. Our next class is on Thursday, bi'idhnillah, and we're going to talk about Babul Sadaq, the chapter of the dowry. How much can a dowry be? What should it be? How shouldn't it be? How does a woman gauge what her dowry should be? Right? We're going to learn about that, inshallah ta'ala. But back to your issue, the issue of our women marrying non-Muslim men is prevalent. It's prevalent. I actually know a sister and counseled her prior to her marrying a non-Muslim for hours. And one thing I learned is that when a woman makes her mind up to do something, or a man, it doesn't matter what no one says, they're going to do it. And then when they come to their senses, depending on how far along they go, they'll be like they made a mistake.
Even if you tell them they didn't see that, they still ain't trying to hear.
Man, some people say, "Man, Allah won't forgive me," or "Make Tawbah." It's listen, and this goes back, and I'll say this. You'll be hard pressed to find a woman marrying a non-Muslim that understands Tawheed. You'll be hard pressed to find a Muslim woman okay with marrying a non-Muslim man and she understands Tawheed. That's the problem. The problem is people are not taking the time to learn Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I know it sounds rhetorical. We hear it all the time, but this is the most important thing as a Muslim. If you know who your Lord is, if you, sister, know who your Lord is, know that it's been prescribed for us to pray 5 times a day, and you wake up in the morning to pray Fajr and your husband sleep, or you fast in the month of Ramadan and eating a pork belly in front of your face, right? It's total disrespect to you. You're lowering yourself. On top of that, you're committing a sin. Oh, well, he doesn't eat pork. Okay, well, he prays to other than Allah. What about your kids? Sisters, your kids follow their father. They don't follow you. What about your kids? So, and when you think about your children, that's your lineage. So when you're dead and gone, you're stuck with your non-Muslim husband teaching your kids who may not even be Muslim, may Allah protect us, I mean, how they going to make dua for you? It's a serious issue. It's a serious issue. And I think a lot of times, we belittle it, but I'm telling you, These issues come when people they're weak in their belief in Allah. They don't know who Allah is. It's no way possible a sister is going to have total clear understanding of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and marry a non-Muslim. Mustahil. It's impossible. But when you have doubts in your deen, every woman that marries a non-Muslim person, they have doubts. Certain things they don't understand. They're unclear. They're unclear about how to worship Allah. And I'm going to tell you another thing. When you commit sins, you start off committing one sin, then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until our hearts get covered. And then we don't even see the problem anymore. How many Muslims you may see committing sins and you talk to them like, man, you tripping. They tell you tripping. Right? So I say all this to say, alhamdulillah, inshallah ta'ala, people benefit from this and they understand, even if it's one person, and they understand like that, you know, a sister, I know. And this is what happens. Our women, they go to school, they work around non-Muslims. You know what I'm saying? They go to school with non-Muslims. So it's not like our women are stuck in the house. They got to live. And this is a reality that our Muslim brothers got to step up. It's a lot of Muslim men, but we got to move better as men. It's still no excuse for the women to go marry non-Muslim men, but it's also a reminder for the men, you got to step up. You have to. You can't allow our women to go marry non-Muslim. And then on top of that, when they marry a non-Muslim man, sister, when you're marrying this non-Muslim, who's your wali? No Muslims. So then it's definite. Listen, An-Nabi alayhi salatu salam, he said, La nikah illa bi wali wa shahidain adilain. An-Nabi alayhi salatu salam, he said, there's no marriage without a wali and two witnesses that are just. That means zina. If you're not doing this, that means what? You're committing zina. Or what shubha, or is a doubtful issue, right? Like the sister that marries a non-Muslim man, she may think just, oh, but Islam Islam recognizes two non-Muslims getting married and they believe in their deen that they're married. Islam doesn't recognize this, even for non-Muslims. Pay attention. Islam does not recognize a non-Muslim union that their own religion doesn't consider to be marriage. Let that sink in. A man has a girlfriend. They're both not Muslim. They've been boyfriend, girlfriend, a couple years, whatever. He said that's wifey, whatever, but that's not his wife. Why isn't it his wife? Because in his own religion, don't recognize them as being married. So then how can Islam recognize it? If your religion don't recognize you being married, then Islam's not going to recognize it. But guess what? If their religion recognizes them to be married, then Islam what? Recognizes them to be married. Does that make sense? Like, real quick. Let's look at a Muslim woman marrying a non-Muslim man. They might get married in a justice of whatever court, whatever they do. They may say, all right, well, their religion recognizes their marriage. That makes sense? However, Islam now does not recognize that marriage. Why? Because she's a Muslimah. It is not permissible for a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man. Hence, Islam does not recognize that marriage. So if Islam doesn't recognize the marriage, then what does it equal? Zina, fornication. Right? Becomes a problem. Sisters, nobody's perfect. If that's your situation, make tawbah, separate from the situation, make tawbah. Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, Kullu bani Adam khatta'un wa khayruhum at-tawwabin. Every children of Adam commit sins, and the best of them are the ones that make tawbah. And Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam, he mentioned the person that makes tawbah, kaladam bala. It's like they don't commit the sin, like the sin is removed. So I say this to say, and this is for the women, it is not permissible for you to marry a non-Muslim man. Islam does not recognize it. It's fahisha, it's zina. So, and brothers, sisters, another thing that happens is in our community, if you know a sister that's married to a non-Muslim, they're comfortable coming around the Muslims and like it's cool. Nobody says nothing. I get it. That's their business. Cool. But they comfortable being around you. Don't come around me. We're not. Now, here's the thing. Let's say, for example, a sister takes her shahada. She's married to a non-Muslim. In this case, we find during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, this happened. Did they automatically separate them? Yes or no? No. She had to go through her iddah period. And during that iddah period, if he accepted Islam, then khalas, their marriage remained what it was. And if he did not accept Islam during that iddah period, then their marriage would have been dissolved. Their marriage would have been dissolved. And another thing, understand this. Sisters, if this is your case, no one's saying you're not a Muslim. That's another thing. Oh, they're telling me I'm not Muslim now because I'm married to a nut. It doesn't mean you're not Muslim. It just means you're a fornicator, an open fornicator that everyone sees. And it's not, subhanAllah, you put yourself in a position that's something that is haram to do, right? That's number one. Number two, you're going around people, so other people are going to think what? Well, maybe this is okay. So now, not only is it a sin on you, somebody else may follow you on this, and now they may get the same sin you got. And then you may be dead and gone, and other people are following your sunnah that you started in disobedience. And this is why it's very, very important, brothers and sisters in Islam, whatever you do, try to do something good so people follow you in that. And if you find somebody following you on something evil, try to stop them. Right. Any questions? Yes.
You give a description of the two just witnesses. You said that because a lot of times you might be
A just witness is someone that is outwardly, you see good from them, outwardly. We're not doing tahqiq. We're not investigating people, follow them home. No, you see good from the brother. It's a parent. This person is, in general, he's not a liar. But then again, I don't know many brothers that's going to say they're a liar anyway. Matter of fact, I've never met anyone that said they were a liar. You ever meet anyone said they were a liar? Yeah, how many people know liars? Everybody here knows a liar, but no one can find nobody that's going to admit that they're a liar. It's crazy, isn't it? Huh? Everyone knows a liar, but no one's admit to being a liar. La ilaha illallah. Did I make sense though? Right. Any other questions? Yes. I can't hear you, sister. You might have to come up. What is she saying? I can't. If you can come up to the door on the side with a.
So my question is, there is a concern with good brothers and sisters meeting, and what are your suggestions?
If there is a concern with what?
With sisters and brothers meeting, then what are your suggestions?
What do you mean meeting? I don't understand what that means.
So like, if there is an issue in the community with brothers and sisters meeting each other for marriage, then what are your suggestions so that brothers and sisters can meet each other so that they're not marrying outside Islam?
That's a good question. So the sister said, so what can be done? I'm just paraphrasing what you said. What can be done that can help sisters and brothers meet each other so that the sisters will not have to look outside of the community? I mean, that's a big conversation. And to be honest, I don't want to answer that question off the top of my head because it's a very important question that I think it needs time, it needs some real dedication going into answering it. So I don't know right now. I can make up something real quick, but I think that's a conversation that as a community we need to look into further and figure out a better way to prevent these things from happening. So, and respectfully, that's what I'm going to answer it right now until we can go and try to make study of the issue. Any other questions?
It's a lot of sisters that want to get married.
Yes, I get it. It's a lot of sisters that want to get married. I could come up. I don't have nothing on I don't know, Sheikh. I don't know. But inshallah, we'll figure out something because it's our responsibility, right? It's our responsibility. So we'll stop with that, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.